Welcome to another panel, Mind, Body, Spirit panel, an offshoot of the Angels, Positivity, and Love show. I have three guests who have also been guests on the Angel, Positivity, and Love show. Episode 5 was Teresa Shantz. She's in Iowa, a healer, an author with a new book out, The Soulquake Survival Guide in June. You can check that out on Amazon. She does tntspiritworks.com. So again, she's a healer, fantastic individual. Check her out on episode 5 of Angels, Positivity, and Love. Also, we have from Arizona, Paul Sugar, 50 plus years, mindfulness, meditation. He was episode 7. Stressbeaters.com is his website. He was recently on Coast to Coast AM with Connie Willis, who should be a guest this fall. She's confirmed. Also, he was on the Jeff Mara podcast, 12,000 plus views. I got to do this to make him laugh. But his teachings are in the public school system, 48 states, LA, whether it's kindergarten through high school and so on. It's a lot of kids doing 8 to 10 minutes of mindfulness before they start their day. I'd also like just to mention that he's taught at Omega. He's been on panels with Deepak Chopra. Part of the Stargate program, whether he knew it or not, way back in the day, does remote viewing. You need to check out that episode. Episode 7, he shares a lot, near-death experience, visions, and so on. Also, from Ontario, Canada, oh my God, is she organized? Is she a healer? Yes, yes. She's incredible. Tracy L. Clark, you might as well remember her as TLC, and I mean that. Her website, you guessed it, tracylclark.com. She's, and I need to mention that Teresa Shantz has a show behind her, Enthusiastically Spiritual, top 22 or 22nd out of the top 100 spiritual podcasts, according to FeedSpot, because Tracy in Ontario has the Tracy L. Clark show. She's bringing that back, took a little bit of a break, but both of these shows can be found everywhere, Spotify and so on. So check out tracylclark.com. She has a lot of offerings, is also an author. She's had a near-death experience or 2 or 3, I've forgotten. But she's had an incredible childhood. And by that, I mean tumultuous, but it's both the health issues that both Teresa and Tracy have had are part of their foundation in how they were able to turn their lives around or their health situations around to then help others and to help others awaken or to tap what they've got for their intuitive skills. Paul has also the same sort of background of fear of death and dying. You'll hear all about that on Coast to Coast AM, Jeff Mara podcast, or my APL show, again, episode 7. Tracy was episode 17. You will be enjoying Tracy and Teresa coming back as guests again this fall and winter. So look forward to that. Today's panel, about 90 minutes long, we're going to talk mindfulness. We're going to talk mantras, and then we're going to talk, well, what do you do with all this happiness and finding yourself and being open and connected to all there is, manifesting? Because we all want to go somewhere and do something fun. I always say at least go on an amazing vacation. Okay, so welcome to all of you. Teresa, welcome.
Thank you so much, Michael. What an introduction, and how you just got all that in the top of your head, I'll never know, but you go with your angels.
Exactly. Tracy, welcome.
Thank you. Happy to be here. I know we're going to have a lot of fun on this panel, and it's exciting for people to see and understand where we're going to go next. The world's changing. So happy to be here with everyone and maybe shine some light in a little direction if people have questions.
Yay. And Paul, welcome from Arizona.
Yes, thanks, Michael. Nice to be here.
Okay, I'm going to light some sage for you all to do that. We don't have a Mayoran, dance singing thing or any cultural or indigenous anything to offer. I didn't think of an audio tape or any sort of flute music to set the tone. I also don't think we need it right this second because all 3 of you are incredible in what you do. You're real experts, masters, whatever the right word is, great teachers, very, very comfortable with other people and helping a lot of folks. But here's some sage in Texas. I'm in San Antonio. I'm blowing it to Arizona, to Canada, Ontario area for Tracy, and Iowa right now for Teresa Shantz. And we did this before the show. They've done it before in the other shows. We know it's going to work. So if each of you could just acknowledge the sage and feel it. Audience can do it too. My only rule would just be, hey, ask angels to make it nice and to bring it to you and then smell it. Okay, let's talk mindfulness first. I think that would be the best way to set the table. who would like to talk about what is even mindfulness? How do we do it? Or are we already doing it once in a while? Paul, do you want to start us off on that?
Yeah, sure. Well, nowadays, mindfulness, because it's become so popular, it's referred to in lots of different ways. But the true definition of mindfulness is paying the ability to pay attention moment by moment on purpose to the body, the thoughts, the emotions, and the breath. So it's a very specific form of, well, not just meditation, because there is that formal aspect of mindfulness, but also bringing mindfulness into our daily activity so that it becomes a 24/7 experience. And that ends up becoming what we refer to as a flow state. So mindfulness is really the definitive flow state experience. And so the background of mindfulness in Western culture is related to stress and all of the physical, mental, and emotional ramifications of dealing with stress. And so what we discovered through well over 10,000 studies in the mindfulness field is that people have this tendency to get stuck in the stress mode, stuck in the fight or flight mode. And since the main coping mechanism with stress is our ability to disconnect, we needed to come up with some way to reverse that because the body doesn't seem to be taking care of that on its own. So we need to become proactive. So we discovered this age-old mindfulness practice in the West. It's very well known in the East. And we decided that it would be beneficial to use it as a way of getting us out of being stuck in that fight or flight mode. Because, and this is the way it works, and this is the whole key to everything. So you won't have to go out and read 100 books after you listen to me for 60 seconds. So assuming that to some degree, everybody is disconnected from their body, which includes their thoughts, their emotions, their breath, and so forth. How do we get back? Okay, so here's the key to mindfulness. It's all about attention. And so through the medium of training our attention, we're able to reconnect to the body, the thoughts, the emotions, and the breath. So that's why the mindfulness practice is so simple, paying attention moment by moment to the body, physical sensations, the thoughts, the emotions, and the breath. And through that simple act of attention to those four things, we're able to reconnect to the body. Once that starts happening, the body senses that reconnection, and it interprets that reconnection as meaning that there's no survival threat out there anymore. And so it reorganizes that autonomic nervous system, takes it out of the fight or flight mode, and gradually brings us back into balance. So once we get into balance, well, you'd think, well, that's the end of the purpose of mindfulness, but no, that's actually just the beginning. So once we get back into balance and we're embodied once again, and all the systems are working smoothly, that's when we start entering into those flow states. So if you continue to practice, do some kind of formal meditation on a regular basis, and then bring that same skill set of attending to the body, the thoughts, the emotions, and the breath 24/7, you start entering into those flow states. And eventually that becomes your life. You're living in those peak performance moments, being in the zone, whatever you want to call it, living a life of flow. And that becomes a 24/7 experience. So that's what mindfulness is. Even though, because of its popularity, it's referred to under a huge umbrella, but it is a very, very specific practice.
Wow.
And
And
it all revolves around attention.
that was a gorgeous explanation. Okay. Before we jump from Paul, real fast, what's a mantra you use just to lighten yourself up? If it's a heavy week, a heavy day, it's a hard moment, something happens. Can you give us a quick mantra that always makes you laugh and return to your center?
Coming into the moment.
There you go. Okay, Tracy or Teresa, who would like to pick up the ball and run with it further down the field? I feel like we just scored 3 touchdowns on that one. That was a good answer.
Yeah, I think Paul, you said it all in a nutshell. But also too, once we understand mindfulness, which was great, perfect explanation, and once we understand it, it is that awareness, like you say, back to the body. And I think that's the one thing people miss. They think it's all just in their mind because they hear mindfulness, right? And they're so stuck in their mind. And what I learned for myself, because I was that person so long ago, right? You're running, you're on stress, everything's out of control. That when you bring it back to that awareness, and that's a practice that people have to understand, that you practice and learn every day. You got to learn it like when you're walking down the street or where you're going driving somewhere. Like, look at how easy it is to get out of that state because we're not conditioned with that with children, which is wonderful. You're doing that with children. If we learn that as little children, it would be much easier to be in that flow. But it's interesting how I've noticed that people really think mindfulness is still stuck up in the brain. And I've noticed that a lot, especially with the transitions and things people are going through, versus that it is coming back to the connection to the body. And I love what you said there about, the breath and how is my body feeling? Like most people don't even know what their body's feeling. They have no connection to the body. And so when they're going through this space of learning mindfulness and how do they apply it? It's really understanding what is that connection back to body. And that takes a long time because it's scary to feel what your body's actually feeling for a lot of people and to really see where is that energy stuck in the body? Why is it stuck in the body? And that's part of that process, which I find with a lot of people that I've worked with, they get confused with that. Like and I love it. I love how you put it into 60 seconds. And now when people go to practice it, they go, well, it sounds easy. So it should be like, pop, here, I'm just going to do it. But when we do it, and we have all had to learn this, right, over time. It didn't happen in one day and you got it going. It's a way of life and a way of being. Okay, how do I come back to center? What am I feeling? And how do I actually apply now what I'm feeling to my outside world? And I think that's that next space that we come into flow, but then how do you apply that to your outside world so your inner world stays balanced and stays connected and stays in that flow, like you said, Paul? Like it's beautiful explanation. Yeah.
Tracy.
Yeah, it's simple, which is why I was able to explain, the whole thing in 60 seconds. But you're right, it's not easy. Simple, but not easy.
Because also too, right? We all here understand that when we live like this, we are in flow. We need to learn to integrate it because the outside world doesn't quite get what we get right now in our inner world. And now we're learning to balance that. And I like what you said, Paul, about the mindfulness umbrella has gotten way out of control in corporations, and they use it as this flying term. And they haven't brought it back to the basics, like you said. They've tried to make it very complicated. And that's why, like, for people listening, like, Paul, you got it. Like, they got to go back and listen to this over and over. That's 60 seconds of what you said. If we could get the outside world and corporation stuff to bring it back there and put that out to the people they're with, oh, we'd see transformation overnight. That's what I believe.
Yeah, there's a lot of reasons for that, for it kind of losing its way. But yeah, it's like you said, it's important to bring it back to its foundation, to its first principle. That needs to be done on a regular basis because there is that tendency for it to be, well, shall we say, watered down and used for other reasons. And of course the profit motive plays into that to a certain degree. And then also there are just some people out there that don't quite understand exactly what it is, and so they go off on a tangent. So between the lack of understanding, true understanding, and the profit motive, yeah, sometimes it goes off on that tangent. So yeah, bringing it back on a regular basis is important.
And I'm just going to mention that Paul Sugar's background, he's certified via UMass and also UC San Diego Medical Center. And again, he's been doing it for 50 plus years, and a very detailed background as well. Okay, Teresa Shantz, what have you got for us to add to this conversation? Mindfulness it is.
Well, what I like about what Paul's talking about, and also Tracy, is being practical with it. So I meet a lot of people that, like you both are talking about, they don't really know what to do with it. And like Tracy mentioned, most people these days can't even feel their body. That's number one. So making a mindfulness practice like Paul's come up with and taking it into school systems and allowing children, and then of course the teachers and et cetera, moving on and how to work with this very practical mindset practice, and what I like to call mastering the mundane. So it's really being consistent with what you're doing, just like getting up and brushing your teeth. If you don't brush your teeth every morning and probably every night, eventually your teeth are going to corrode, they're going to decay, and they're going to fall out. Same thing with the spiritual part of our body and our body, mind, and spirit, which is what we're talking about today. So really making it practical, which is really what I'm all about. Like, I too, like Tracy, I used to call myself a hot, energetic mess because I was. And even these days, I tell people, as much as I know about who I am as a soul and how to move through my life as a soul and a spirit being, I'm a human in a physical body. So I still have days where, I might spin out, but then I get myself back on balance a lot quicker than I ever used to. So, really being human and really letting people know that even, we're all human, and just really being able to master these certain techniques that really can support you and wherever you're at and wherever your journey's at. Because as far as we're talking about like the umbrella of things, and I see a lot of this, of course, through my podcast, a lot of people come on and sharing really the same stuff, just different, it resonates in different, vibrations with different people. And that's what I find also out at expos. I'm meeting a lot of people in different places, but the core thing we all have in common is we're all souls in physical bodies. And so having a beautiful way that, Paul is coming forth and sharing how to really master the mundane of, being mindfulness and being mindful every single day can be such an asset to anyone, anywhere, at any time. So I definitely applaud you, Paul, for the work you've done and bringing it forth, especially into the new generation that's coming up. Because when I'm at these expos and I see all these 20-year-olds and teens that come up and share with me, they don't understand what they're going through and how to work with their energy. It means so much that we're passing this on to the generations coming, because we're going to be gone and they're going to be here and they're going to understand how to move through this physical existence as a spiritual being in a physical body.
Yeah, I'd like to add something to that, Teresa. You mentioned that paradigm of the soul living in the physical body. And what I discovered in various experiences over many years is that the connecting point between the soul and the physical body is attention. Mm-hmm. And that's why I gravitated so much to mindfulness, because when I realized with mindfulness that it's all about attention, and when I put together my experiences that I've had, let's say, paranormal experiences, out of the body experiences and visions and stuff like that, where I noticed that attention was everything. If I wanted to travel from here to there and I shifted my attention, then I would go from here to there. And so it is right here as well. And so assuming that idea of being disconnected, being stuck in fight or flight, what exactly is disconnected? Well, the soul is disconnected. Mm-hmm. And so it's through the medium of that attention. So it works over there, it's working here too. Through that medium of attention, it ushers the soul back into the body. And when that happens, you get the energy from the soul, igniting all of those energetic systems in the body. And so you don't really have to do anything specific. You don't necessarily have to focus on the chakras or the meridians or anything like that. Just the energy from the soul coming back into the body will ignite all of those systems in the body and bring the body up to that flow state experience. And it's another reason why I like mindfulness, is because it sort of addresses the whole ball of wax without having to get into all the infinite specifics. It works from that 30,000-foot level. So I'm
And I'm
glad
really
you
glad,
mentioned that soul into the body thing.
and I'm so glad you're mentioning attention, because this is important with moving out into the world where we have people are putting their attention on the fears, the anxiety, what this political group's doing, what this religious group's doing. And so their attention where, it's going outside of themselves versus moving back inward to what's the attention for myself? What's the attention for this moment of what I need to really be aware of? And like we're all talking about, especially in the physical body, because that's where it starts at. What am I feeling? So I 100% agree with you, Paul. Attention is so important.
Well, and
Absolutely.
also too, you notice, you see that fortunately or unfortunately, you have to look at the programming is from small is look outside of you. Everything is outside of you. And exactly what the attention is, no, we have to look inside of us, not outside, because we have all the answers inside. And so that's also a space where people are learning, how do I bring my attention back in? Because I've been conditioned to have it always out. The answer is outside, that I look outside. And that right now, I always see with people is this is the big pivotal moment now where people are going, well, wait a minute, I've looked outside. And this is what I love about what you guys are saying is attention. That's not working for me anymore. I'm stressed, I'm tired, I'm in fear. So what is that key? Yeah, you got to go inside. And that attention inside, people have to understand that it's okay, because it's not selfish to look inside and put that attention inside and the awareness, because that's what will create change so much quicker and peaceful, right? Yeah.
Absolutely.
Lightning round for all three of you. 3 ways that people can take at least 5 minutes during a typical day to pull back from what they thought they knew, the external society, the news, and everything else. I'll start. Jump in a community pool, your own pool, find nature, and I'll say shut off the TV for at least an hour. Don't leave it as background stuff, unless it's ocean, waves, meditative stuff. Okay, Tracy, what do you got for 3 quick tips? You're on the spot. Spotlight's on you.
My one is exactly what you said. I say go outside, even if you're in your house, wherever you are, get outside, take your shoes off, and just take a few breaths with nature. And I always just say, I always go, if I bring myself back to me. I literally do this a lot because I'm like, okay, if I'm feeling out here, I want to bring that energy back to me. So it's like a signal just to the body, just bringing it back to me, taking that breath, and then saying, okay, what do I require right now? What am I aware of right now? And like Paul said, that breath is important. Take it all in. And then usually within about a couple of minutes, I can go back in and do what I need to do.
Paul, you hike some amazing trails. I always forget the name of those 5 peaks, 3 peaks. What are they called?
Yeah, close. 4 peaks. So right in between the 3 and the 5.
Yeah, I mean, I bookended them. Okay, so what are your just quick tips? Can you come up with one, though, that we wouldn't have thought of? Like eat that carrot slower, cut it into pieces and stretch it out.
See, the thing with Mike is he reads minds, and because I wasn't thinking of carrots, I was thinking of apples. So I was going to say mindful eating, which is sort of like doing wine tasting. But of course, wine tasting and another example would be like a Japanese tea ceremony. The whole idea is bringing all 5 senses to bear onto the experience. So let's say you just want to eat an apple or a carrot, and you would take turns using each of the 5 senses. So let's say look at the apple, and then you'd touch the apple, and then you'd smell the apple and hear the apple, and then of course taste the apple. So engaging all 5 senses into an eating experience is a great way of coming back into the present moment. And being a foodie, I would gravitate to mindful eating as a way of bringing me back into the present moment if I felt I was falling out of that flow state.
Teresa.
A reset.
One of my favorites is listening to music. So putting on some jams that, either relax you or get you moving. And that's the second part, is moving the body. So I'm really big with physical activity. As far, it could be weight training. It could be just walking up and down the stairs. It could just be walking around the house, going to the mall, doing yoga. There's all kinds of ways to move your body. But for me, it's really important. that I share with people that, energy gets stuck in your body. So being able to move really helps you shift the energy that's within you. So those are the two things. And I love nature. I love being outside, love being in forests, and in, anywhere I'm at, I'm outside. So nature's a biggie.
And I'm going to add
Michael,
personally,
what's yours? Spotlight on Mike.
I use running, and I'm going to mention something none of you know about. Tea leaves. You can go to your Whole Foods. They've usually these days have a tea stand with 40 little pots, sample leaves. You can put your hand over those leaves. Now they've been sitting out for a while, but energetically you can still feel with your palm or your fingertips or your whole body. And you can have the tea pick you. You could spend just $1 here, 50 cents there, $1.50 there. Get 5 different teas, take them home with you. You don't need to know what to do with it except heat some water up, but let the tea pick you when you decide you're going to go outside and have a cup of tea. You can mix teas. I didn't know that before, so I'm going to really throw myself under the bus here. I thought it had to be one tea. Nah, you can take a little bit of each, but let the tea choose what you need in the moment and put your hand out. The only suggestion I have for anything you're going to do is clear out. Have some sort of a ritual request to get out of your brain into your heart, so you've got a center out of which to operate, to receive better. So I always just say, ask angels, if you don't mind me saying that. Angels, help me out of my head into my heart, own it with a thank you, amen, rock and roll, and get moving. Feel the tea, have a great cup of tea outside. Okay, keep going with this. Who wants to lead off in sort of an offshoot of where we've been? Take this ball and roll with it. I can throw out mantras if we need to go in a specific direction. Who wants to volunteer? Teresa, Tracy, or Paul?
I would like to go back to actually, because we're talking about awareness and attention, and something Teresa said just before we jumped on when we were chatting before we got through was, and Paul mentioned it, back to that awareness into the body, because so many people don't know how to feel their body. They don't know what it looks like. And if we can help people understand that and the process going through it, they're going to become golden, especially when it comes back to the mindfulness. Because a lot of people I've noticed when they come to me, and I'm sure you guys have seen this as well, Tracy, you do a lot of stuff on body work too. It's back to how come I can't feel and what can I do to feel? And we need to start feeling again as a society. And so we can stop being disconnected and come together in union and one and love and kindness. And to do that, we need to feel and be okay with feeling, which comes back to the body. I'm not sure if everybody's ready to go there, but I just feel it's a big part. It's a big part that I've noticed. And when people start to feel and they start to connect and say, well, wait a minute, why do I have that pain coming up in my body? Or why is my nerve system out of control? People who know my story, I was born with a damaged nerve system. So I walked around like this all the time. So people just thought I was having seizures and like, are you okay? And so many neurologists said, well, it's just a tick or it's a damaged nerve system or get over it. I didn't want to feel my body anymore because it was too painful to feel on a physical level. But that physical pain was also equating to emotional pain. And so people they shut it off. And then they just, again, back to what Paul was saying at the top of the hour, that disconnection. And I think that's a great discussion if we can go there, because many people are looking, how can I feel comfortable feeling? What can I do? And why am I so disconnected? And if we can help them, then we could speed this energy of connection back to humanity versus disconnection.
Yeah, I think I'll chime in next. Is that it excites me because what I'm noticing a trend, of course, you've probably seen it also, is that these ice baths and being immersed in ice baths. And, this is, of course, a way to really stimulate the system in a real extreme way. But people, for some reason, are just gangbusters on board with getting their body in ice baths. I mean, they're selling them. They're, like you can get your own little personal one versus having to go to a Tony Robbins or a breath workers, a convention or function. And to me, that's exciting in the sense of, I mean, it's an intense way to obviously, feel your body. But sometimes the people have to go there because of the fact there's so much trauma, maybe so many things they brought in from previous lifetimes, things they picked up in the first 7 years, or trauma they went through when they were younger. And finding a way that kind of just shocks the body to it as, extent where they're like, now they can move into feeling more. And so myself, I do ice, I do cold showers in the morning. After my hot bath shower, I'll put the cold on me. But I haven't gone to the ice bath yet. It's not my thing at the moment, but I think it's an interesting perspective of starting to having a large amount of people really start to feel on a whole different level.
Yeah, the ice baths, it's an interesting phenomenon. I think it originated maybe with the anti-aging people, because a lot of the studies show that that shock to the system is really a good reset.
Mhm.
And so people who are into health and wellness and so forth and so on, and who are also interested in anti-aging and so forth, are getting into those ice baths as a regular part of their regimen, each day. So yeah, it's definitely a way of feeling in a new way. It's quite a
And
shock.
they don't breathe when they go in. I was in one a couple of days ago, but we have these
Yeah.
places where you go hot, cold, sauna, steam, you know, you just go. But everybody that goes in, you see they put a toe and they run away, or they're like, and they're doing this as they're going in. So back to your like awareness of mindful, there's no breath happening. They're just like, get me out, get me out, get me out. Again, still it gives them a shock, but it's also keeping them disconnected. I've watched them go in. I'm like, you gotta breathe if you're going to go through this. And that again takes time, right? They're learning, but again, that reconnection. And that's a great start. But again, we need to be able to do that and connect to our body every day. Like when you're walking to that meeting or you're going to that family dinner you don't want to go to, or whatever it is, whatever's happening in your life, these are still those places. And it's great that there's these little tools that people are starting to learn. But I always go back to we got to be aware of what's coming on in here 24/7. Like we were saying at the top of the hour, Paul, like it's got to be a 24-hour, awareness in the moment of what is my body telling me, what is it feeling, and how do I run with that?
Yeah, and like you mentioned earlier, Tracy, the question is how do we get comfortable, with feeling our bodies, which perhaps some of us haven't felt in decades. I work with people all the time who come to the conclusion that they've been disconnected for 20, 30, 40 years.
Yeah.
And so a big part of mindfulness, particularly in the beginning, is the acceptance of the experience that maybe in the beginning for a while there's going to be discomfort, and so with mindfulness it's not just about feeling comfortable, feeling good. It's the willingness to also be present, to feel discomfort and not feeling so great, particularly when you're re-entering the body after not being in it for a while. It's like, who knows what's going to be there. So having that willingness to fully experience whatever happens to come up in the present moment, whether it's comfort or discomfort, or even just neutral. A lot of times there's really nothing in particular going
Yeah.
on.
And
So
getting uncomfortable, right? With getting comfortable, you got to get uncomfortable. And I think for a lot of people when they've had trauma too, and I know I did it, and when you've had severe trauma, even as a child or whatever, we do tend to pull out, like you were saying with the soul, right? We'll pull out of our body and we'll live over here. So we're almost walking in two realms, right? We have the out of body experience, which is where a lot we see it. I see it a lot. I'm sure you guys do walking down the street. You're like, ooh, that person's kind of over here and their body's here and they're not connecting, but it becomes survival mode, right? And it's just like, this is how I cope.
Yeah, and I think what I want to bring into this is that we're at this great reset for everything. And this is just one piece of it, becoming more aware, becoming more mindful of who we are as a soul and how we move through our journey. Because I notice when I'm at these expos that I meet a lot of people, especially the younger people, that don't even really sometimes know, well, what sex they are, right? I mean, am I a man? Am I a woman? I'm transitioning, I'm doing this, I'm doing that. And they're as confused as even, how to work with that physical body because it's in a transition. And even those that are younger and teens, they're already going through the teen transitioning of all that's going on in their body. And then adding in I would say sometimes the pressure of, the collective of what they're going through right now. And, am I this, am I that? And how to access that awareness within myself, because I am confused. I don't know who I am in my mind and then in my body. So that's what I'm really noticing is, there's a lot of disconnect with even who am I as a gender, who am I, and that, makes disconnect with my mind, and then not even connecting with the body because it's in this fluctuation of I don't know which way to go, and I don't know what am I going into next.
Yeah,
anything
that's
to
a
add?
complicated issue.
That is
Very
it's a
complicated.
Kind
very
of, sort of.
complicated. I'm with Paul
And
on that one. That's a very complicated issue. I'm with you on that
yeah,
one.
I was listening
Yeah.
to Teresa talk about that, and I'm thinking, what can I say about that? But we don't have 10 hours for me to talk about my different opinions about the various possibilities of what it could be. Of course, I have no idea what it could be. I only would use my imagination and say, well, maybe it's this, maybe it's that. But in the end, I just don't know what that is.
There's a greater flow though that anyone can tap into. That's just your higher self, your soul. It's what you kind of signed up for. That's available. The details sort of unfold the rest of your life after that. That's a lot of shortening and making it too concise. But feel what you feel. Do not judge. I like that phrase. It came from 3 Native American chiefs we've all met on the other side. Unconditional love, spirit guides, Dull Knife, Red Shirt, and Geronimo. Feel what you feel. Do not judge. Interesting.
I
Not
always
always
say,
easy.
stay open to everything and judge nothing. But again, back to the top of the hour, if they would just come back to that awareness of body, awareness of self, awareness of what works or what feels right to somebody, coming back to that and moving out this noise. I think you said it, Mike, about turning off the TV, right? And moving out that noise. If you can move that out and not get wrapped up, because a lot of times when we're disconnected, we get wrapped up in a narrative to be accepted. And people forget this. So they want to be accepted so badly, they will take a narrative on that may not necessarily be their narrative. So if we can come back to connection versus having to be accepted by an outside narrative, they will get the answer a lot quicker of what works for them and be able to move through their life on a flow for them versus a narrative they want to be accepted into in anything in life. I'm talking anything.
Yeah. And so if we remember that the prevailing emotion when we're disconnected is fear,
Yes.
because fear is the way that we deal with that survival issue, that fight or flight thing. And so all of our experiences then become influenced, colored by that fear, and one small example is, like you said there, Tracy, that drive for acceptance, which comes from fear.
Exactly.
So many of the negative pathways that we go into are caused by being driven in there by that fear that's coming from that phenomenon of being stuck in fight or flight and having to deal with the fear, that which is a good coping mechanism because it helps us to survive, but when it's there all the time, it works against us rather than for us. It was good when the saber-toothed tiger was attacking us, but
Sure.
no more saber-toothed tigers. So we don't need to be living in that fear all the time.
Paul, you brought up a great point here. And so there's a difference in flow. One is up top in the brain. And I'm not saying all thinking's bad, but when your thinking drops to your heart, that's when you're creative. That's when you're in the flow. And so you're really one with all at that point. So there's a flow up here. There's 1,000 different ways to describe it. Ego, psyche, unconscious, unlove, thinking, stress, fear, worry, rejecting, reacting, knowing to the preclusion of possibility. Think about a lot of our knowing, but 5 years earlier, we thought differently, or 5 years in the future, we'll have completely flipped. We never do accounting or any form of accounting on that front. But things are changing all the time. We want security, and the ego is sort of like a false security blanket. Now, down in the heart, consciousness, love, it's all the good moments in life. We're here, as Teresa would probably say in Earth School, to learn to love more, allow more, share more. And she'll also tell you there's no pressure on the time frame of that. Don't feel like you got to get it all done at once. She'll tell you 3 lifetimes could be fine. You're good. You're good right where you are. Trust the moment. So I wanted to catapult us in that direction to talk about there's 2 different flows. You dropped your heart. That's when you're kicking 3 soccer goals in a row in 3rd grade. You nailed it. That little cluster of people over there, but you snuck out with the ball. You got the goal. Poor goalie is going to be crying in 3rd grade. and you nailed it. But that's also all of our creativity. It's all of our connecting to nature, connecting with everything that matters. Who wants to take that ball, the soccer ball, and go from there to talk to us more about the difference between awareness and thinking? Awareness, unconsciousness.
Yeah.
Teresa?
Yeah, well, we need both. So, we've taken ego to a whole other realm as far as, the way people perceive it and the way people run with it and etc. But we need both because in our heart, we have our drive, and the drive helps us to be passionate about things, to feel. And then in the mind, that helps us organize the direction we're going. So you really need both. We want them in balance. We don't want to have too much feeling where we just don't do anything and we're just like, blah all the time, which or emote all the time, which we see a lot of that out in the world. And we don't want to be too much in our head all the time where it's just think. And it's got a lot of the, like the isms, the alcoholism, the, golfism, doing too many things all the time. So we want to have a balance of both, and finding that balance for each person is really key. And how to do that, I would say really follow your passion and follow your journey. And I wanted to bring that a little bit in about the uniqueness of each person, because we're all talking about, really kind of a collective unity of coming in mindfulness and stuff. But as an individual soul and our individual journeys, it's really up to us how we move through it. Like Michael was saying, and this, for where I'm at right now, it might have taken me 50 lifetimes to get right here. And the person next to me, maybe they haven't been here so many lifetimes, or maybe in 10 lifetimes from then, they'll get to where I'm at or someone else. And not judging where you're at and honoring the journey that you're at and where you're at in this moment. Back to that mindfulness with Paul, being present. Where am I? Who am I? And not judging myself compared to Tracy, compared to Paul, because we're all on different journeys. And that's one thing I like to really share with a lot of people, because of the fact that we do look outside to, oh my gosh, I'm not where Tracy's at. I'm not where Paul's at. No, I'm where Teresa's at. And I'm here to do what Teresa's here to do, not what Tracy or Paul or Michael's here to do. So I think I took it on a whole little different trip there, Michael, but I really wanted to talk a little bit about, our journeys and the uniqueness of all of us, and not, and just honoring where you're at, and not, looking at other people and saying, hey, I'm not quite there. No, you're exactly where you need to be. What we're just trying to do is just really give you a way to work more in mindfulness, a way to move back into your heart, into who you are as a soul, and start feeling, and how to move that forward in your journey, whatever that looks like.
I like that you said that with the comparison. It's big. And I'm sure you guys get this a lot when we're doing podcasts and stuff. People look and say, oh, you're there. I'm like, yeah, but you didn't see us 20 years ago, like crawling out of bed and crying and throwing things around and going, I'm out of here. And I know, Paul, you've had some near deaths. I have. It's like, just take me out. Why are you bringing me back? Like, I don't want to be back. Like, they don't see that part. And I think that's what's so beautiful about what you just said, is that we got to stop comparing and understand that our journey is our journey, as long as we're showing up for ourselves. And I always say it's the hard drive. I equate it to, like, you have a hard drive of your computer, and you take out your hard drive of your computer, all your programs are not working. Your computer's done. So I say it's like your hard drive, because you can't really take out a sliver of your heart. You can get a new one if you can find a donor, but that's kind of one of the only organs you can't really, you got your hard drive, and it runs all the computer systems basically of your body, right? And like you said, you need everything. You're here with everything to connect. And so it's like when you have that hard drive, and it just keeps upgrading and upgrading and upgrading. And so people can kind of relate that, maybe that the way you upgrade your computer or your cell phone, the more awareness and attention you have to bringing your body, your soul, your spirit back into your hard drive, then your whole systems, Paul, you said it, they naturally start to upgrade. And then you can go out into the world, and you might go, wait, I don't have that fear. I'm ready to jump. I think you said that one, Teresa, about jumping, and, I'm ready to jump. I'm ready to take a risk, or I'm ready to leave this relationship that's no longer working for me, or the job, because you've now upgraded your internal software. And so I always like to give that little analogy. So people, because everybody knows their computer and their cell phone. I'm like, well, look at it in the body, and you're constantly having that upgrade. So I really like what you said there. Very, very beautiful.
Yeah, I also like what you said there, Teresa, particularly about bringing the mind/brain in balance with the heart. because there's a tendency for so many people to overthink and put an overemphasis on thinking and the brain and the mind and all of that, there's also a tendency to throw out the baby with the bathwater. And they end up thinking that thinking is bad when thinking is not bad. There's nothing wrong with thinking. It's just about establishing a new relationship with your thinking and bringing it into balance with the heart and the rest of the systems into the body. So, Teresa, you opened up a very important door there of knowledge and conversation.
Hey, do we have any mantras we can kick out at this juncture? And I'll buy some time with a stall here. But just, again, getting out of the head, getting into the heart. Maybe it's not a big mantra. That's a joke. Every mantra is amazing. And every moment that you're in your heart's amazing. But everything in your present moment is your instruction. But just I'll shorten that to everything is your instruction. Whether you want to pay attention or not is the question. And again, as it's been said, you can go decades without even noticing anything from an actual flow state. And welcome to being human. I'll do a very funny Hollywood movie reference. Casablanca, Humphrey Bogart, etc. The scene when the chief of police walks into the casino and he yells, "I'm shocked to see there's gambling going on in this casino." And he yells for the usual suspects to be rounded up, the place to be shut down. Meanwhile, one of the waiters hands him his winnings because he's getting bribed all the time. And the point is, our thinking is the gambling going on in the casino. Now, the trick is, how do you become a pit boss? Or how do you end up owning the casino and having a lot more fun, harnessing everything you've got to live more, love more, and allow more? Who wants to take it from there and give us a little bit of a zest for life? That enthusiastically spiritual sort of motto, mantra, hint, 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 Teresa. Take it from here and shoot us off into the ether of the universe.
Well, one that I always like is, I am being my true authentic self.
Tracy.
I like to say I'm grounded, centered, stable, and neutral to bring back to body.
Ooh. Paul.
Well, I got to tell you, I don't really use mantras very much.
But let's explain why, because you're living in a much, I don't want to say too much, but you're experiencing, it would be like you got electrocuted and it stayed with you for a long time. Can you elaborate on this a little?
Yeah, well, let me just say that probably the first 25 years of my meditation practices and teachings and so forth and so on, I did use mantras. I was using various meditation systems and so forth. But then I guess it was 30 some odd years ago, I just decided to shift my attention, pun intended, into mindfulness. And because I wanted to see if I could I wanted to test out the system of mindfulness, just that pure attention and bringing the energetics of the soul into the body. Wanted to see if I could work from that 30,000-foot level without using all of the other things, the visualizations, the guided imageries, the mantras, so forth and so on. I wanted to see if I could put that aside after 25 years and just do that 30,000-foot level thing. And so I used myself as the laboratory, and I've discovered that, at least for me, I can maintain that soul connection and the energetics that come from that soul connection in the body. I can sustain that just through that mindfulness meditation practice and then bringing that skill set into my everyday activity. So I can sustain it without all of those other different approaches. And I'm not saying that those other approaches are good, bad, or indifferent. It's, for me, I spent 25 years doing it, but then I discovered, well, I was curious. I just wanted to see if this other thing would work. And so for me, it did. And so I think it's good for everybody to consider all the different possibilities and then gravitate toward whatever feels right for them in that particular moment. And then also have the flexibility to allow yourself to change and try new things when it feels right to try those new things. So for me at this time, I've put the mantras to the side and just really do the mindfulness practices.
Wow. So before we get to manifesting, Paul just said mantras without mantras. He is the mantra. You are the mantra. He's one with the mantra without knowing it or acknowledging it, or he knows it. Be the mantra. I'm just throwing out some fun here. But if you knew Paul's background, his fear of dying, which started at a very early age, I'm going to again punt to Angels, Positivity, and Love, the YouTube show you should be subscribing to, sharing, liking, but first enjoying. And we need more subscribers, so please subscribe and like. But check out Paul's appearance on the Jeff Morrow podcast and also on Coast to Coast AM, where he gets into that. And there's a lot of background, a lot of flavor there in all three of those shows. Back to Tracy, what would you have to add for, I'm going to throw a hand grenade in. This is a love hand grenade. It's not the 70s, the love fest that we had then. Clearly, that's not the time that we're in, where everyone just runs across the street and randomly gives a stranger a hug and says, I love you, and runs away. You found a flower in your hair afterwards. That's not happening right now. We're in sort of the pendulum swung the other direction. Like I think it was Teresa that said, way too much thinking going on in gambling in this casino. But I would posit that love is the fabric of the universe, and anything that I've sounded sharp on today actually came from chiefs, angels, and so on, and that's one of those. Love is the fabric of the universe. Trust in that is my advice to the audience. Tracy, take us somewhere with this whole big enchilada that we've cooked up here.
Where we are so far. First, I actually want to say, I want to jump into here with Paul just said something, especially people who've been on their journey, or they're just starting their journey, or they've been on for a long time. And I so always like to remind people of this, and I want to emphasize it, is give yourself permission to drop certain things, change. And when you learn something different, you no longer need to do that piece. That was it's so true. And I think people forget that when you're talking about, let's get into creating and manifesting, we need to be willing to say, okay, I've done that. Like, I don't meditate the way I used to meditate. And people say, why not? I said, I don't need to meditate that way anymore. And sometimes I feel like I have 50 tabs open and I'm just grabbing information to me. But meditation to me now is like, cooking a meal and staying focused and getting information. Sometimes it's walking and noticing the different spaces. So I changed how I did that. And I love that Paul said that. And I wanted to bring that just back to the audience's attention, because we need to understand that just because you did something a certain way, it's okay to now change and let it go. And I noticed when I started to do that, I also got better flow, and that also led to better creation and manifesting, because you can also get stuck in here going, oh, did I do that thing right? Did I say it right? Which there's no right or wrong, right? It's just how you feel in that flow of the moment, which I feel is really important to if we want to talk about, like you said, Michael, with creation and manifesting and how we move through this new earth and how we can grab hold of our energy for creation, for the whole world, but then also for the things that everybody listening desires in their own space.
Beautiful. Hey, Teresa, we're coming to you next, but I got to do a quick side tangent. I'm on runs, and I find that it's one of my biggest releases. Been running for 40 plus years. I'd love to say since I was 1, but I'm 55. So long story short, I was running yesterday, and Ginger the fairy, I've got photos of fairies. You meet angels, you see full on. I don't normally chat with her during a run, but I find that my thinking, anything I've got an issue with, bubbles up first. And I've got to get rid of it. And I've got a bunch of ways that I just ask for angels to come in. I'm like, angels, help me ground, release, protect me, help me have more fun, help me, let go and be me. And so Ginger pops in and starts coaching me, and then is chatting with me. And I've been doing this for like 10 or 12 years now, where I have running conversations with angels, Geronimo, Sai Baba, whoever. I'll be in the shower doing shampoo, and I'm having either out loud, I don't want to get caught at the supermarket, so internal conversations, or just support, like relax, breathe more, let go, laugh. They say something that just catches me off guard, and my whole emotional state goes boop, and I'm wide open again. So I did want to throw that out there. I don't think I've ever mentioned that directly to any of you or on the show. So this is a public self-flogging a little bit, but it's fun and it's happy, and that's what I'm enthusiasm, and that's why I love Teresa so much with their enthusiastical spiritual show. You have to check that out sometime. Make sure you subscribe, like, and share. for her show. I have plugged you tons, Teresa. You owe us today with your new book and everything. Deliver something good for the audience right now.
Show me the money. Show me the spiritual money, Michael.
Exactly. Yeah.
But
okay, take it from there. Talk to us about how do we put it all together? Or how do we not even try, as you might say? How do we allow?
Yeah, well, I'm going to go off of what Tracy was saying, because I too find that the most present I am is when I am cooking in the afternoon, after I've been working through the day, and or taking a walk or doing something where I'm just being present. And I think that's a key thing for myself, and perhaps for viewers out there, is, sometimes we're doing some project or something, and then we've got the music on or this on, or someone screaming over here, or we're not in a quiet place, or whatever it looks like. There's too much stimuli coming in. So being able to be present in, like, cooking, taking a shower. I mean, some people even listen to, like, things in the shower. I'm like, and shower time is for me a time when I want to be with, myself and my guides, and, just relaxing. So, and the other way I want to take this is that it's important to know that there's so much out there to choose from. Like, it's like a buffet line, especially right now. And like what Paul was saying about, he doesn't do mantras. Well, I don't really either, but I put them in my book, because after the end of each chapter, because there's people in different places, and some people it will resonate for. Some people resonate for journaling every day. I don't like to journal at all. I just don't get anything out of journaling. And I have when I was younger, I don't now. So it's kind of just flowing with, what do you feel is supportive for you and your journey at this moment in time? And I love what Tracy was saying, how, and I've been the same way. I've changed and shifted throughout my life. And some people are like, I can't believe you can't stick with anything. Well, life is all about change, and change is constant. And so being able to really flow, and the picture I'm getting in my mind is like a chameleon. Like, I'm just kind of going over here and change, and shifting to that and changing this, and it's all fine. It's just, honoring where you're at. What does your being and soul want to experience at this moment? And so, and it shifts and changes. Yeah.
I'll add, ask more. If you need a mantra that's not really a mantra, it's more of a reminder, ask more. We're so into everything we've discussed today that we forget that if we actually get to a neutral spot or a connected spot or our center, that, well, from that point it's a launch pad. You can go in any direction, as Teresa just pointed to. And so what we're totally not used to is, oh my God, what do I do now? It's the movie scene with Bethany Hamilton, the one where the surfer, she had her arm bitten off by the shark. Yeah. Soul surfer. She loses her arm. She had been a competitor in surf tournaments and surf contests. And, if you lose something, you fall into a slump, you're an athlete. It could be years. It could be, months that before you regain your focus or your clarity. She regains her clarity and realizes losing an arm is not the end of anything. In fact, she can compete and win still. She comes out of the water in the movie version. I think it's Helen Hunt on the beach, her mom, and says, Mom, I'm no longer hung up on, she didn't put it this way, losing my arm. What do I do now? And Mom was like, hey, just love more, allow more, and go with the flow. What's next? So being in your heart is the launch pad. So what we are not used to, we're used to all the drama, all the everything, the conditionality, but we're not used to being able to have the freedom to go in any direction we choose. Just as, again, Teresa said, your higher self, your soul, or just your creative juices. So ask more. You don't even need to know what you're asking about. What do I need to know next? What should I do next? How can I let go more? Challenge yourself to spend more of your focus on the upside, the positive side, abundance. And I'll add one more mantra or reminder. Positivity is abundance. Drop the mic on that one. Positivity is abundance. Paul, can you add one little thing before we do move to manifesting? We do need to produce, create in life. People find themselves having gotten out of their situations in life. And how do we attract more outcomes? But Paul, what do you have to bridge us over to this topic? Good luck with that one. I've given you a big task.
Yeah, well, I was thinking, you and I think we've got that Vulcan mind meld together, because I was already thinking of what to say before you asked that particular question. So, flashing back to, once again, mindfulness, the home base, and that prevailing emotion of fear that comes with being stuck in the fight or flight mode. So along with fear, you've got all of the different iterations. So anger, hostility, anxiety, frustration, which are all simply iterations, expressions of that primary fear, which is, of course, the fear of dying. So, got fear and the negative emotions. What happens when that autonomic nervous system comes out of the fight or flight mode and the fear goes away? Well, so does the anxiety, the frustration, the anger, the hostility, the loneliness, all of the stuff that comes as iterations of the fear. That's number one. Number two, to answer your question more specifically, you thought I was going to go round and round for hours, didn't you?
You're doing great.
So number two, my middle name is brevity. So I do tend to arc in that direction. So number two is, well, what happens when the fear goes away? Okay. Naturally, because the soul and the energy from the soul is now occupying the body, it's also expressing the characteristics and the qualities of the soul, which would be love, compassion, appreciation, gratitude, kindness, forgiveness. These are all natural qualities that exist within us when that soul energy comes into the body. So we don't have to work really hard to develop, love and compassion and gratitude and kindness. We don't have to work hard to develop it because it's already there. All we need to do is put aside the fear, and it will allow these other positive qualities to emerge and express themselves. So to answer your question, that's how we get to the positivity of who we really are, is putting aside the fear by embodying with the soul, combining our energy with the soul energy, and then just letting those qualities of the soul naturally express themselves inside of us and then put it outside of us as well, so that the inside reflects onto the outside.
Incredible.
So you've got that continuum, inside, outside, inside, and you're creating that flow between the inside and the outside.
I always say the chocolate, the Reese's, that commercial where one person's got the chocolate, one person's got the peanut butter. They didn't know they were each hitting each other at the corner. And that's kind of the juxtaposition here, not to make light of it, or to make light of it with a capital L. Tracy, we are coming to you, but I just want to make sure, folks out there, you don't need an ice bath. You can go to the mirror and just start saying, I love you. If you need to get a glass of wine or you want to get a chair, some sort of platform, because usually the mirror is a little higher up, you might need 7 hours straight of telling you in the mirror, I love you, before you start believing it. At some point at hour 7, you're going to let go and start connecting to yourself. At that point, you will either be crying, laughing hysterically, or extremely drunk. But the point is, I love you. And if you need a movie reference, because I love Hollywood and movies, I think it's a reflection on mankind. It's my thing. It was my escape initially to avoid spirituality, but angels kept showing up in angel movies when I was clicking to old black and whites 12 years ago. Angela, Angel-A, Luc Besson, who did The Professional, Joan of Arc, Fifth Element, tons of other movies. Check out Angel-A, the tall, lanky angel with the short little guy at Montmartre. It's a black and white set in Paris, but she puts her arm around him and makes him, I shouldn't put it that way, no angels make you do anything, but encourages him to say to himself for the first time in a decade that I love himself, give himself love. It's all about self-love. And, he starts crying when he connects. He does it in about 30 seconds. It's a movie. And then she had initially told him, I love you. And that got him started. And then she disappeared while she was still there, turned invisible. Angels can do anything. And he started to tell himself, I love you. So with that, Tracy, I've bought you all the time in the world. Take it from there.
You're funny. Yeah. It's when we're creating or looking to move something in our life. And I personally learned this one really well. Going on, I was saying, one of my claims to fame in Canada was being one of the youngest kids in Canada at 5, diagnosed with a very large ulcer. So got back to fear and worry, and how that I learned that, and I teach this, and we all teach this, is that keeps us out of trust as well. And when we're not trusting in what we can't see and trusting in what, we're feeling, that takes us out of that alignment. And when we can come back into that love and more of the joy and the harmony, which always, it's within us. I always say whatever's within us, we know that's being reflected back from us, from the universe, right? And that's how we see that flow. And when people are looking to create or generate something different in their life, I always ask them, where do you feel with that alignment that you're not trusting or knowing or believing enough in yourself to be able to come back into that awareness and spend that. The more time you can spend in there, the more you're going to create. And unfortunately, what we see a lot right now, and people have to understand, this is also a learning. Like when I had ulcers and was worrying all the time and had so much fear, I wasn't a very good creator. I was a great creator of garbage, but I wasn't a good creator of good things, right? Going, well, why does this keep happening? And understanding that it is a process, and it is a layering, and it is a space of saying, okay, today I trusted in this area a little bit more. And today I trusted more in who I was and how I was showing up, which then you start to see more things created in your reality. And that's that space of getting out of, yes, fear. But it is also really, again, connecting and saying, why do I have that fear? How can I move that so I can go deeper, to trust, to know, to believe, to start to create more? And so, and then your vibration of love changes, your vibration of joy changes. You start to notice, like what I notice, and I see it a lot of people I work with, when you live in these worlds that are just seem like you're just getting, pooped on all the time, you start to see that gets less and less and less. And you're like, wait a minute, this year was better than last year. And to take that reference point and build on that energy of, wait a minute, this is better. And I'm noticing over here, I'm getting more movement. And the more you see that, the more your vibration starts to raise, which then makes it easier. Because unfortunately, we do see in our realities now, I don't know if you guys saw that article where people's attention spans now are shorter than a goldfish. I don't know if you guys saw that one. You're like,
wait, what
did
you just say, Tracy? I missed it.
Yeah, right. You're like, shorter than a goldfish. I was like, there's a science, you could Google it. And I'm like, these scientists, I'm like, oh, I don't know if that's a good thing anymore. Right. So we have to understand, we've got to have our attention span. Really, we gotta, take that time and know that it's not just because it didn't happen, tomorrow, or you didn't get it yesterday, doesn't mean it's not en route to you now. It doesn't mean everything's already in your field. And again, back to what you said, Michael, at the top, and I know Tracy had mentioned that, Paul, is that we're all in different places. We're on our journey, but I'm sure many of us here on this panel can say there were things we wanted to create that we said, thank gosh, that didn't happen, but whoa, look what I got over here. And that's that joy, that if we can get out of how it's going to be done and the way we think it's going to be done, and trust. And that's why I always come back to that. We get better than what we want and get rid of the time frame. Like, people have to stop this whole gotta be today.
That was incredible. Everybody, a new lightning round. And Tracy, thank you. You're outstanding in your field. Lots of sunflowers out there. Okay. We are going to, with your permission, just take a moment to, you had mentioned joy and harmony, so I've got to do this. An angel named Joy. If you can put your hand up to the screen, you can ask for a hug, you can get an answer, you can get a topic or a quick, not a topic, a quick couple of sentences or phrases or reminders you want to share with all of us. You've all done this before during the shows that you were on. I need to mention this: Angels, Positivity, and Love. Please share, subscribe, like, and so on. But the second half of the show, most guests actually interact with angels. They get answers, they get hugs. I think a lot of people might look at the show and not even know that happens. And get what you can get, smell what you can smell for the audience. Catch floral, catch ocean, catch a perfume that hasn't been invented yet. Who wants to go first and say, wow, I just got hit hard this way?
Anybody?
Teresa, what'd you get?
Wow, Michael, I just got hit hard this way of just being present.
Okay. Did anyone connect?
I'm a mirror to you, Michael.
Okay. Did anyone connect with Joy?
Yeah.
Oh,
Yeah.
good.
Oh,
Everybody
yeah.
did.
Oh,
okay,
yeah.
good.
Yeah.
Oh,
Yeah.
I just want to make sure the audience, because I'm very literal, so I don't want to miss it. Okay, who wants to share something else? Did you just get a connection? What mantra, what reminder does Joy have for us all? And I'll push this a little. Paul?
What reminder does Joy have for us today? To embrace more joy in our lives.
Beautiful. Tracy, you're going to get harmony. She's supposed to be rainbow light in this photo. She, of course, chose tranquility as her theme song. What do you have from harmony?
Finding your inner peace. Don't be afraid to find your inner peace.
That was beautiful. Now, one last quick little exercise. I've got a big lighter. There was a reason for that. Ask Joy to show up as pink light on the lighter. This is for anybody who can just let go if you need help. Sing, exhale like a whale, rub your hands together in a circle. But is anyone seeing extra light beyond the normal Bic light or flame? A purple, a pink, a yellow, rainbow light from harmony. Put your hand up or nod if you are getting extra light. Ooh, so strike out, strike out, strike out, or are we seeing a little? Tracy,
I get an extra
I'm not
yellow.
one that normally sees that kind of stuff. So
Well,
Okay.
I'm getting so light, I might start levitating the ball.
Hey, you better not joke too much about that, Paul.
Office chair.
Okay.
You can see here, I'm going up, going up.
Oh my God.
Whoa! Way to go, Joy.
Yeah.
All right, last figure, and then we'll get back to discussing, but Geronimo, older Geronimo, what would he want to contribute to this conversation? A reminder, Tracy?
Activate your inner warrior and don't be afraid.
Oh, beautiful. Oh my God. It's twice in a row, Tracy. If I had a prize to give out, it's going to you right now. Okay, Paul, what does Geronimo have to add to this?
Well, first, let me say that I live on Geronimo Road.
Wow.
He does.
in Scottsdale. And what Geronimo is saying very clearly at this point to me is it gets better as you get older.
Cool. And Teresa, you're officially on the spot. Peer pressure.
Be courageous from your heart.
Yay, you all did fantastic. Okay. Let's start recapping, sharing extra. It could be practical and tactical at the ground level. We all feel like we've got bills to pay, things to do. There's a lack over there, or we know what our purpose is, but we just feel like we can't get there or tap into it. I will start with this and just trust that the universe, whether it's Esther Hicks we're talking about, or The Alchemist, Paulo Coelho, what a short little fun book. Universal forces are in place to deliver everything. You can stop worrying about the how. I feel like I'm taking thunder from a few of you here on this, but let the universe do its job. Get out of your own way is part of what we've been talking about today. And that's where the magic happens, as Paul might say. So here I've thundered into all three of your territories. Please, someone take this conversational ball and expand on it.
Well, I'll say that you don't need to try so hard. So kind of back to the manifesting. Before I knew anything about spirituality or who I was as a soul, I look back and I manifested everything in divine timing without knowing anything. So really just taking it and going one step at a time and just knowing that, you know, you have choices, but there's no really wrong path. It's just you have different experiences.
Yeah.
Beautiful. I'll take the Yoda quote on that, where you don't try, do, and just get into that flow, right? Don't try, do.
Yeah. And, you know, I've been holding back on this for the entire time that we've been together here, but I'm going to have to insist that Mike does his Yoda impression with the don't try, just do thing.
Oh.
And Paul is doing the Vulcan mind meld again, because I was just getting the vocal cords warmed up to do just that. So Yoda's voice, but no one's off the hook on this. So I'm going to hold Charlotte's photo up. Another angel who's a teacher. Picture her in Santa Fe, New Mexico garb. Picture her as Audrey Hepburn's sister. Been around the block. If you like ancient Egypt, it's her. Leave your eyes on her. Catch a floral smell. Catch an ocean smell. Ask her a private question. Get an answer. Get a hug. Get a mantra. Ask her to-do list. 2 or 3 next steps. While I distract, I'm going to take up your psyche, your thinking, your structure, because as you laugh, none of us have mentioned laughter today more than once or twice. When you laugh, you're letting go. When you smile, you're letting go. 200 facial muscles involved in that. So that's exercise. I think that counts. Also, there's one other million ways into your heart. So this is just openness itself, as Buddhists would say. It's opening the line of communication, as angels would say, that's available to each human in each moment, to the universe, to your higher self, your soul, to angels. So here we go. Yoda, do not. There is no try. And I'm going to make this a non-duality statement, because Archangel Gabriel once said, and anything that I've said that's pithy or whatever is actually from angels. Again, I've got very little original stuff. Archangel Gabriel said, always try. And, Yoda says no try. And they're both correct. It isn't about words. It's the context. Non-duality in one sense is correct, and non-duality in another. It's. So everything's your instruction. I think it's there's an old Siddha Katrapa from India from 1,000 years ago said something like, childlike innocence is the way in which you realize how virtue and vice are one. It's the whole non-duality thing. I took 27 years to wonder what non-duality actually meant. Thich Nhat Hanh's little book, Pieces Every Step, there's one non-sentence in the whole thing, blah, 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 non-duality, period, not two, period. He explained that non-duality is the definition of just not two, not oneness. And I was sitting in an Acura parking lot on a curb watching leaves swirl while my car was getting serviced. And I said, oh my God, I waited 27 years for that definition. I didn't have a Buddhist professor or Paul or Teresa or Tracy to call. So everyone's on their path looking good. If you knew it or not, you're perfectly good where you are. I'm taking from Teresa's mantras here. You're perfectly fine where you are. Trust in this more, as Tracy would remind you. Can we have a final few insights, though, on this whole process called life? We're here to love more. We're here to allow more. Unconditional love. It's shiny and sparkly. You're full of it inside. The second you let out, get out of your own way and stop judging all of it. Tracy, talk to us about this whole thing we call life.
I think we've forgotten, especially when we're children, we are told to play, go play, get outside. And then when we enter school, it's sit down, be quiet, don't move, don't have an opinion, get quiet right now. And I really believe people need to get back to playing. Adults got to be less serious. You got to play. And if you're feeling stuck in your life, go play, go have fun. Like you said, Michael, laugh, just let go and just get out of your way. And when I was in the corporate world and managed a lot of people, a lot of times like, this isn't closing or this isn't moving. I'm like, go, leave, go play. And they're like, what? I'm like, take a holiday, get out of here. And they're like, what do you mean? No, the other boss is sick. I said, go. And they would leave. And then they come back and go, I left, and everything closed and everything just happened on its own. And I said, yeah, because you got in your own way with your thoughts and your feelings. You go play, you get out of the way, you bring the joy, you bring the laughter. Watch, everything out here is not going to feel so yucky. It's going to have a flow. It's going to come to the way better than what you want. And that's one of the things that if people, I think now, especially with what we've gone through over the last 5 years and where we're going, it's so important to go and play and just escape and let spirit take the lead.
Tracy. Oh, I'm sorry,
Teresa.
Teresa. I'm looking at Teresa and I'm like,
Tracy, go, Tracy.
Just
I'm
meld
such a
it
bad
together. You guys
host.
are doing mind melds. Teresa and I do. Yeah, we're all like, all of us.
Tracy,
Trek Star Wars.
Tracy needs to repeat everything she just said.
Exactly.
Word for word.
I'll say it's like the Brady Bunch, whatever she said down in the corner.
Squares,
So
we
that's
need
a great way
few
to
more
do it is
squares.
I'll have what she's having. Yeah.
Exactly. Ditto, Tracy. No, I do feel the same way. And for myself, I'm all about enthusiasm, and that is really accessing that godlike, just beautiful essence within us. However, each person can do that. And I'm the same thing with laughing and music and moving and just getting out of the normal and doing something that's not normally or not normal what we would do as adults, and just enjoy it. Because I think that's the thing, is a lot of people are just like we're talking about, they're just so stuck in, this is the box I'm in and I'm not moving out of the box. No, it's time to damn jump out of the box and go have fun. Be enthusiastic.
Beautiful. Paul?
Yeah, along those same lines, flashing back to what Mike said originally, which is the laughing and the smiling. I think that's so important, and particularly when you don't feel like it.
Mm.
That creates a big shift, is what I've discovered. You know, when I don't feel like smiling and then I smile, there's this big shift that takes place. It's a little more challenging with laughing, a little more of an energy force there, but just the smile, you know, and if you don't feel like it, just do it. And you'll notice that there's a shift that takes place. You're right about all those 200 muscles and releasing endorphins and serotonin and all those good hormones.
Release the dolphins, although I'm making fun of it all. Okay, so everyone's a Zen master, whether they know it or not. I'm throwing out a last concept here, which is, you know, think of Jackie Chan. In a lot of movies, he'll pull a wink, a smile. He's got a certain lightness to him, even in the middle of a serious spy movie or something. He was even in a classics, maybe Forbidden Kingdom. I forgot the name of it, but he was the drunken Zen master or drunken warrior. And that is sort of my approach, a lightheartedness. I like to do wordplay and letting go and so on. But everyone is a Zen master. If you can't trust it, let's go societal and modernize this. Your cell phone is your Zen master right now. We spend more time doing this, and that technically is a Zen master who's not very good for you, but it's still your instruction, and you can flip it so that your phone turns into the greatest thing ever. Greatest thing since sliced bread. How? Remember to remember, if you can remember, to remember when you remember. Now, I thought that was original. I thought it was the one thing I could hang my hat on for a mantra or a reminder or some cool phrase. But Songyel Rinpoche wrote an intro for some Tibetan book of dying, fell off a bookshelf. No one was near it. It was one of those 3 books that ever fell off a shelf. I can't explain this. The universe will step in for anything you need, so be sure to ask more. There, the book fell, a Tibetan book of dying. The guy wrote an intro for everyone has to write a Tibetan book of dying. Paul and I should jointly write one as well. But the book fell open to, I've been teaching my students for 35 years, remember to remember. I got to admit, it's pithy, it's short. Remember to remember is better. So remember what? Doesn't matter. You figure it out. That's the whole beauty of this. I'm in Teresa Shantz's zone now. She's incredible at motivation, helping you let go and get oriented at least without telling you what to do necessarily. She'll get you tippy top shape-wise. So your cell phone, Zen master, modern like speaking wise, when you see people on the streets, it's true. And I'm going to plug myself for 1 second. As I was popping 12 years ago, I'm still popping today. I was a deer in 100 million headlights back then. Now it's 99.9 million headlights, blank vacuous stare. I wrote a book called Glow Stick Zen, 2/3 assisted by angels, the crew, Mary, Buddha, whoever. It is 1,700 pages, technically speaking, but if it's on my iPad, it's 3,400 pages. I never mentioned this book. 34 chapters are gates, the gateless gate, opening openness being in your heart. I have a whole chapter on the cell phone as your Zen master. I had to mention it. Final lightning round item, Audrey Hepburn, an angel. We all know who she is. You can let this photo move, wink, smile, shoulder waggle. People have had the hands move somehow. I have it a little shrunken so you can't see your hands the whole way. Get what you can get from her, get a blessing, catch perfume that hasn't been invented yet in the air. But let an eyebrow go up. We know photos can't move, and yet no limits in life. And that's what we're going to end with in a moment. So get what you can get from her. Each of you will need to share one thing from Audrey Hepburn, and we're going to close out on no limits. Tracy, you are smiling a lot. Let's do it.
Embrace your inner beauty.
Teresa.
Infinite love and gratitude.
Oh, nice. Okay. And Paul Sugar, we started with you and you mentioned the Yoda thing and threw me under the Star Wars bus, which was appreciated. So we're going to finish with you here. What do you got for us?
Well, we were talking about Zen masters. So Audrey wants me to tell my 10-second Zen master joke. All right. So here it goes. What did the Zen master say to the hot dog vendor? Make me one with everything.
Oh.
That's part 1. Here's part 2. So the Zen master had given the hot dog vendor a $20 bill. And he waited and he waited and he wasn't getting any change. So the Zen master said to the hot dog vendor, I gave you a $20 bill. Where's my change? So the hot dog vendor says, your change comes from within.
That's a good one.
That's a good one. And that's the lesson is what got referenced very early on is finding everything within your answers. You can have any answers to any questions. You do have to trust that your inner voice just isn't your higher self, your soul. But when you do get more comfortable with just being you, loving yourself more, that's when your invisible advisors, you have a cheerleading squad, relatives, ancestors, a lot of indigenous cultural communities refer to your relatives that way, your ancestors. But you just have spirit guides. You have loving beings that are here to assist you on your journey. All three of these individuals are capable of assisting on that front, but they're there to help you first orient so that you're shedding what doesn't serve anymore, you're flowing your energy better. Can we have a last little outtake though? Teresa, what else have you got for us for a sort of final enthusiastic reminder?
Enthusiastic reminder. Enjoy your journey, enjoy where you're at, and don't hold back.
Beautiful. Tracy, what do you have for a compassionate, kind, loving, self-love, self-love, self-love reminder?
During all the changes that we're going through right now, don't be afraid to forgive past experiences and love yourself through everything that you're going through, because that's going to be the key to opening up to your new realities.
And Mr. Stay the course, pay attention. Where are you putting your focus? And I'll mention, the big thing I've learned, the only thing I've learned in 12 years, where you put your focus is where you put your focus. But Paul, what do we need to know?
Well, along those same lines, I could say where attention goes, energy flows.
Yeah.
Okay. Thank you very much, Teresa Shantz, host of Enthusiastically Spiritual. You need to check out her podcast. Incredible show. Also her book, Soulquake Survival Guide, just out in June of 2023. We've got Tracy L. Clark, TLC. You can't forget the name, tracylclark.com. Healer, author, show host herself. Thank you for being on the show, Tracy. Paul Sugar, stressbeaters.com, 50 plus years of mindfulness meditation and much more. Check him out on the Jeff Mara podcast. Check him out on Coast to Coast AM. But all three of these guests, Teresa was episode 5 of Angels, Positivity, and Love. Paul Sugar was episode 7. Tracy was episode 17. But Tracy and Teresa are coming back on, which forebodes well for Paul, because I suspect this fall he'll tape and be on for everyone's viewing pleasure in February or March of next year. Thank you, everybody, for being on this panel, Mind, Body, Spirit panel number 2. I have to thank you very much for being here.
Thank you, Michael. It's been a pleasure.
Thank you.
Thank you.